Today what I am working on, I'm going to show you is how to make a patch. I do not have a merrow machine, so I'm going to show you my method on finishing the edges and creating this. This particular patch is just going to get sewn on the vest, so there's no glue adhesive or anything on the back. The two pieces that I use for this are, one of them is called buckram, and I found this at the local craft store. It is usually used to line the inside of hats and things to make it a little bit stiffer, as well as my poly twill, which has an adhesive on the back of it. And what I do is I take the two pieces over to my heat press and I put them together so that they are now one piece. That way when I go to put it in the hoop, the two pieces of material don't shift at all. It's basically treating it as if it's just one piece, and it's nice and stiff. It's still pliable, but it gives for a good sturdy, stiff patch that should hold up for quite a while. Once I have the buckram and the poly twill hooped, you can go ahead and put it into the machine. What it's going to do is it's going to stitch the main design first, and then it's going to come along and it's going to stitch an outer edge for me to use as a guide to cut the patch itself out. Okay, now that my design is done stitching, you can see where it did an outline stitch around the design. It's just a single line, and that is the line that I'm going to use to cut the individual patch out. Okay, so I've cut my patch out. I just used standard scissors and went around the edge of my line that stitched earlier. I have it so that I cut just on the outside of the line. I've got my patch here all cut out, ready to go. I have a piece of plastic hooped and ready to go. So what I'm going to do next is hit start on the machine, and it's going to stitch one more of the same exact line that I used to cut out the patch. While that's stitching, I'm going to take the patch itself and I'm going to take some spray adhesive, some temporary spray adhesive to the back of the patch while that is stitching, and then come back to the machine here in a second. Okay, so I've got it set up so that my machine stops right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my patch that I put some spray adhesive on the back, and I'm going to line it up like you would an applique on top of the stitching that just stitched on the plastic. So sometimes this can be a little bit tricky, but you want to make sure that you can get it as close as possible. Okay, so once I have the outline of my patch lined up with the stitching on the plastic, I'm going to restart my machine, and it's going to put a stitch to tack it in place, and then it'll finish the edge of it off. Okay, while it's stitching the finishing edge on the patch, I wanted to quick show you what I have set up in my computer. I'm using Design Shop Pro Plus. This is the design layout for that patch. The first 4 colors are the main design itself. And in my software, I set up 3 additional color changes. The first one, which is number 5, is the line that it stitches going around the design itself. And I have the machine set up so that it pauses and stops after color change 5 so that I can remove it from the machine, take it to my scissors, cut the patch out, as you saw earlier in the video. Then I hoop my plastic, take my plastic back to the machine with my patch, and hit start. It moves to color change number 6, which is also the same exact thing as number 5, and what that's doing is it's taking that single line center outline and putting it onto the plastic so that I have a template of where I'm going to lay my patch down at. Once I have that outline and my patch lined up and I'm happy with it, I hit start again on my machine. It moves to color change number 7 and proceeds to put on the finishing edge that will be the finished product. So once it gets stitched here in a second, I will pull it off and show you the finishing product. Okay, something else I wanted to show you was, I don't know how many of you have a machine with a screen like this. I have Melco EMT 10s, but this is how I pull up my design here at the machine, and hopefully you can see this. Here are my color changes, and as you can see, here's color change number 1, 2, 3, 4, so on. Here are my P's, my pauses. So after color change number 5, which was my final stitch color of the actual design, I put, or actually, sorry, that was the outline that I used to cut out the patch. So once it sewed that patch, the machine paused so that I could remove it from the machine and take it and cut the patch out. Then when I brought it back to the machine with the plastic, I hit start and it did the stitch on the plastic, and then it stopped because I put in pause, and then when I came back and I hit it again, then it went on to the finishing stitch, and all of these over here are just extra. They're not part of the design. So that is how I put the pauses in on the machine, was that after color change number 5, I did a pause, did a stitch, did a pause, and did my final stitch. So hopefully that helps somebody out. That was one of the things that I found useful that I figured out how to do. Okay, so here we have the finished design. It went ahead and finished stitching my finished stitch on this plastic. So all I'm going to do is pop out my design from the plastic. I kind of had to put 2 pieces together because my plastic wasn't wide enough, and I didn't like to do that, but okay, there we go. Alright, so here is the finished patch. I still have plastic on the back, but all I'm going to do is take some sharp scissors, peel up an edge, peel off any other remaining plastic I may have, and I have a finished patch. So hopefully you can see that edge. It looks like it wraps all the way around. I like this edge versus the one where you do this complete patch and then you cut around this finished edge with a knife. To me, it gives it a different look, where this is more of a finished look all the way around. The customer had brought in, this was their original patch that they brought in for me to copy. This, they used, the person that did this patch used a merrow machine. You can kind of tell by the way it was done. Down here is the tail of the merrow. This was my patch that I did with my finishing edge. I don't think it turned out too bad. This was the smaller patch, and this patch here is actually 12 inches from top to bottom, and obviously this one is smaller. But this is how I do my patches. I found this to be the one I like the best versus going around the finishing edge. I don't think I have a steady hand to do it the other way, so hopefully this helps somebody. These were steps that I kind of did along the way that found out I worked, and hopefully they're useful to somebody else. Thank you.